Hey guys, it's Libby and welcome to the Bard Book Club. Today, The Comedy of Errors, Shakespeare's shortest play. It's also one of what I think of as the early plays, along with Taming of the Shrew, Titus Andronicus, Two Gentlemen of Verona, and the first tetralogy. And when I say early, what I mean is bad. Okay, that's maybe a little harsh. They're not bad, they're just not good. And then I think of Love's Labour's Lost as the transitional play, and then once we get through Love's Labour's Lost, we start to get to like the good Shakespeare's, like Midsummer Night's Dream and Hamlet. I think if Shakespeare had only written those plays and then died in like 1594, he would not be famous at all. The big Elizabethan playwright for us would be Christopher Marlowe, and also maybe Monty Python wouldn't exist. And what a truly tragic universe that would be. By the way, shout out to the alternate universe where Shakespeare lived for another 20 years and wrote a bunch more plays that were even better than the ones that we have. Please share. So there's not that much to say about Comedy of Errors in and of itself, but there is some more interesting stuff in like how it fits into Shakespeare's genre. So if you either haven't watched or if it's been a while since you watched my video on Shakespeare and genre, I recommend you go get that because we're going to be talking a lot about what it means to be a city comedy and a romance. So you should at least know what those words mean to start with. Now in that video, I break down Shakespeare's comedies into three categories: romantic comedy, city comedy, and romance. To be frank, Comedy of Errors is kind of none of them, and I did maybe forget about it a little bit when I was making that video. Because what this is a farce. It's very much based on Roman types of comedy. Shakespeare was pretty directly stealing like concepts and scenarios from two plays by Plautus, the Roman comedian. His two plays have titles which are very difficult to remember, so hold on while I look them up. Okay, the Menechmi gives us the concept of like a separated set of twin brothers, and one of them comes to the town where the other one is living, and there's lots of confusion involving like a doctor and a prostitute and a piece of jewelry. And then from Amphitruro, we get the concept of two sets of twins, master and servant sets of twins, for like double the confusion. So even though in this period of Shakespeare's career we would kind of expect him to be writing a romantic comedy, like Comedy of Errors is not a romantic comedy. There's like barely some romance in it between Antipholus of Syracuse and Luciana, which mostly involves her going like, "You're my brother-in-law," so swoon-worthy. And then we've got the shrew wife Adriana, which isn't super romantic, and Dromio of Syracuse totally dissing Nell / Luce. So yeah, getting people married is clearly not what we are invested in this. We're mostly here for ha ha ha, the confusion, and also like comic scenes of beatings, which are not as funny to us now, but apparently Elizabethans thought they were hilarious. We're going to talk about this more when we get to Titus Andronicus, but like entertainment in the Elizabethan period was just very violent. If you weren't going to go see Comedy of Errors with someone pretending to hit somebody else, you might be going to see like a bear baiting or cockfighting, which is, you know, real violence. Not just this pretend stuff. So I tend to take it easy on violence portrayed fictionally. So most of the play is taken up by this farce, but we've got these two bookend scenes, the first one and the last one, which definitely seem to be bringing a different tone. The first one is not farcical at all, and in fact, the play that it seems like it should be in is actually a city comedy. And there's several other elements of Comedy of Errors which are city comedy type things. So one, it is set in a city of like industry and commerce, like a bustling city with a variety of trades going on, which we get to see. Then we've got dealing with the problems caused by laws, which are sometimes not always doing what you want them to do. So the Duke has to kill this guy from Syracuse because anyone from Syracuse found in Ephesus has to be executed. And he's like, I don't really want to. That's what the law says. And we've also got sort of solo women, or women doing it for themselves, as I like to say. We have the courtesan, who is, you know, self-employed, and also the abbess, Amelia, who is like sort of representing herself in a social sphere, as opposed to being represented by a man. So this whole setup of nun, sex worker, man who's going to die for not particularly good reasons should all remind us of Measure for Measure. And then we've also got the focus on sort of exchange and value. Antipholus of Ephesus has ordered a chain, which he was going to give to his wife, but then he decides to give it to the courtesan, and she gives him a ring in exchange for this. There's lots of borrowing money and, money going to the wrong people. And at least in part at the conclusion, we get a very city comedy-like conclusion, which is where things have technically worked out for the characters that we see on stage, but we still haven't solved the larger problem. Like, if we get another guy from Syracuse coming to Ephesus, he's also going to be condemned to death. Our man Aegeon just got off because he had someone to pay his fine. And this is a lightly meta-theatrical critique where, you say, look, everything's happy, but that's just because it's a play, and like in real life, things continue to be bad. It's like really hard to solve problems, structural problems. So we can see some early elements of city comedy coming in. And city comedy was actually much more popular in the Jacobean period than in the Elizabethan period, which is when Comedy of Errors was written. Shakespeare, he's got some foresight. It's almost like he's good at writing plays. So we've got the city comedy element, but also the romance element. I want to read you some of the just so fun prose. This is from Act 2, Scene 2. It's Antipholus of Syracuse and his Dromio are at Adriana and Luciana's house. Antipholus of Syracuse says, "To me she speaks, she moves me for her theme. What, was I married to her in my dream? Or sleep I now, and think I hear all this? What error drives our eyes and ears amiss? Until I know this sure uncertainty, I'll entertain the offered fallacy." Luciana, "Dromio, go bid the servants spread for dinner." Dromio, "Oh, for my beads, I cross me for a sinner. This is the fairyland. Oh, spite of spites, we talk with goblins, owls, and sprites. If we obey them not, this will ensue. They'll suck our breath or pinch us black and blue." I normally talk about rhyming couplets as being like an elevated type of speech in Shakespeare's plays, but here it's just so often, it's used so often, and it's so silly that it comes across as more like nursery rhymey than elevated. But to deal with the content that I just presented, both of the Syracusans are constantly talking about Ephesus as this like magical place where there's, goblins, owls, and sprites. And, people here are like crazy, or maybe this is a dream, or this is fairyland. And this sort of magicalness is all an element of romance. Now, it is sort of a fake out or a pseudo romance because we, the audience, know that like the people of Ephesus are actually normal people who are behaving as you would expect towards someone that they know. And so it's only a romance from the perspective of the boys from Syracuse. And so the setting of Ephesus is important to this play. Oh shit, I said it right before. Menaiche. Yeah, the one by Plautus. It's set in Epidamnum, and Shakespeare changes the setting to Ephesus, quite possibly to draw in some like the English understanding of Ephesus, which is gleans not from actual Ephesians, but from St. Paul in his letter to the Ephesians. He's saying something about like, are you guys doing magic over there? Enough of that. And so Ephesus is sort of associated with this like magic and witchcraft place. And this kind of interestingly has a link with the city comedy element, because city comedy has like women doing it for themselves. And women doing it for themselves are often interpreted as witches. Like women with knowledge and competence tend to be classed as witches, whereas men with knowledge and competence are like skilled professionals. Although we do have a man with special knowledge in this play, and that's Dr. Pinch, who's a very like wizardy type of doctor. He's described as a threadbare juggler and a fortune teller, a needy, hollow-eyed, sharp-looking wretch, a living dead man. Woo! You know, guys, I thought maybe I should pick Macbeth to read in this October so we could talk about witches for the spooky season, but you know, I picked Comedy of Errors and we still get to talk about witches. And then the real focus of the conclusion of the play, aside from the pardoning of Aegeon, is this reuniting of a family unit, which is a very romance sort of thing. So first we have like the dead mom is not dead, which is a total staple of Shakespearean romance. You see it in both Pericles and The Winter's Tale. Check out my Winter's Tale Bard Book Club video in the description. So yeah, in all these cases, like women, the sea is often like at least kind of involved. The sea is involved in like another, and not the mom's maybe death, almost death in The Winter's Tale, and then the sea is also like, there's a storm going on in the death in Pericles. So yeah, we get this storm where like, does the mom die? Nah. And then it turns out, you know, she is in fact alive. And so we do get some real satisfaction with the conclusion of this story, which is not something that would happen in city comedy. And it's not a romantic union that we're focused on, which would be romantic comedy. It's the reunification of husband, wife, and children and brothers. And in fact, the last lines are focused about like brothers, and like the joining of hands here is physical as opposed to the metaphorical joining of hands which you get in the wedding ceremony. So we have that sort of replacement. Okay, those are all of the interesting things I have to say about Comedy of Errors. I thought I was gonna have to make some shit up, but you know, there was some stuff here. So now that I've done all my fancy pants analysis, can I just complain about a plot hole, which is that Antipholus of Syracuse knows that he has a twin brother who exists out there somewhere in the world, and yet he is completely bewildered by the fact that people are acting like they know him. Like, shouldn't he think, oh, they think I'm my brother? He must be around here somewhere? Come on. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Next month, it's gonna be Coriolanus. Have fun with it.